Someone is lying. Someone is terrified. And the closer Weatherfield gets to the truth about Theo Silverton's murder, the more it feels like the wrong people are being blamed. Because what if Gary Windass isn't hiding an affair? What if Sarah Platt isn't hiding a romance? What if both of them are protecting a killer? And if that theory is true, the real shock may still be ahead. Welcome back to Coronation Street Update. Tonight we're diving into one of the biggest fan theories to emerge from the Theo Silverton murder mystery. A theory so explosive that it completely changes how viewers look at Gary, Sarah, Todd, and everything that happened on the night Theo died. Because while everyone has been asking one question, who killed Theo? Some fans think we've been asking the wrong question all along. They said, who are Sarah and Gary protecting? And that's where the mystery becomes even darker. 4 weeks now, viewers have watched Gary and Sarah behave in increasingly suspicious ways. Secret conversations, hidden meetings, nervous reactions, awkward silences, and constant attempts to avoid explaining themselves. Naturally, most people assumed the answer was obvious. An affair. A betrayal. A secret romance developing behind Maria's back. But despite all the accusations, many fans simply aren't buying it. Because something doesn't add up. If Gary and Sarah were just having an affair, why do they both look so frightened? Why does Gary seem permanently on edge? Why does Sarah look like she's carrying an enormous burden? And why does every conversation about Theo seem to send panic through both of them? Those questions have created a whole new theory. One that is spreading rapidly among viewers. The idea that Gary and Sarah aren't covering for each other. They're covering for somebody else. And that possibility changes everything. Because we've already seen one crucial flashback. The moment that put Gary directly at the center of the murder investigation. A flashback showing him standing above Theo's body. A moment that instantly sent social media into meltdown. For some viewers, that was proof of guilt. Case closed. Gary did it. But others saw something completely different. They noticed what wasn't shown. They noticed what the flashback deliberately avoided revealing. We never actually saw Gary kill Theo. We never saw the fatal moment. We only saw Gary at the scene. And that's a huge difference. Because being present isn't the same as being responsible. What if Gary arrived after the attack? What if he found Theo already injured? Or worse, what if he discovered evidence pointing toward somebody he desperately wanted to protect? Suddenly the mystery becomes much bigger. And that's where Todd Grimshaw enters the conversation. Because according to many fans, Todd remains one of the most overlooked suspects in the entire storyline. Which is ironic. Because Theo's death revolves around him more than almost anyone else. Todd loved Theo. Todd trusted Theo. Todd built a future around Theo. And then everything came crashing down. The lies. The manipulation. The abuse. The devastation. The betrayal. Theo shattered Todd's life. And while Todd has tried to move forward, emotional wounds like that don't simply disappear. They linger. They grow. They fester. Especially when anger and heartbreak become impossible to separate. But that's only the beginning. Because some viewers think Todd's involvement goes far beyond motive. They believe the truth about that night hasn't been fully revealed. Not even close. One fan theory suggests that Gary and Sarah discovered evidence which made them believe Todd was responsible. Not because they witnessed the murder. Not because they know for certain. But because the circumstances pointed towards him. Imagine the situation. Theo lies dead. Evidence appears to implicate Todd. Gary and Sarah arrive. Panic takes over. And in that moment they decide to protect him. Not because he's guilty. But because they think he is. It's a theory built entirely on fear. Fear leading to mistakes. Fear leading to cover-ups. Fear creating an even bigger mystery. And if that's what happened, then every suspicious thing Gary and Sarah have done suddenly takes on a completely different meaning. Their secrecy isn't about romance. It's about guilt. Not murder guilt. Cover-up guilt. The guilt of interfering with an investigation. The guilt of protecting someone they care about. And the terror that the truth could destroy all of their lives. But then things become even more complicated. Because another theory has emerged. And this one might be the most shocking of all. Some fans now believe Theo wasn't murdered in the traditional sense. Instead, they think Theo may have orchestrated events himself. A chilling possibility. A final act of manipulation. A final act of revenge. A final attempt to destroy lives even after his own death. According to this theory, Theo intentionally staged a scene that would point toward Todd. A setup designed to ensure that Todd became the prime suspect. True, it would be perfectly in character. Even after everything he had done. Even after all the pain he caused. Theo would still be controlling people. Still manipulating events. Still hurting those around him. Even from beyond the grave. And that's where Gary and Sarah become crucial again. Because if they discovered what looked like evidence against Todd, they may have acted without understanding the full picture. Thinking they were saving him. Thinking they were helping. When in reality they were making everything worse. And that's the terrifying possibility. The possibility that people trying to do the right thing accidentally buried the truth. But one detail changes everything. The emotional state of Gary himself. Because Gary isn't behaving like someone enjoying a secret relationship. He's behaving like someone under pressure. Immense pressure. The kind of pressure that comes from carrying dangerous knowledge. The kind of pressure that comes from knowing one mistake could destroy multiple lives. Viewers have watched him become increasingly defensive. Increasingly evasive. Increasingly desperate. And every new flashback only adds fuel to the fire. Then comes Sarah. Perhaps the most fascinating part of the mystery. Because Sarah isn't simply worried. She's haunted. Every revelation appears to hit her emotionally. Every accusation seems to trigger genuine panic. And fans can't stop asking why. What exactly is she afraid of? Exposure? Arrest? Or discovering that the person she's trying to protect isn't innocent at all? And that's where the real emotional tragedy may lie. Imagine protecting somebody for months. Risking your marriage. Risking your reputation. Risking everything. Only to discover they never needed protection in the first place. Or worse. To discover they actually were guilty. That possibility would be devastating. And Coronation Street loves emotional devastation. But the biggest clue may actually be what we still haven't seen. The missing pieces. The hidden moments. The unanswered questions. Because despite all the flashbacks, viewers still don't have the complete timeline. There are gaps. Significant gaps. Moments deliberately left unexplained. Moments that could completely transform the investigation. And every time the show reveals one answer, two new questions appear. That's not an accident. It's building toward something bigger. Something explosive. Something capable of turning every theory upside down. And now fans are becoming convinced that Todd is somehow connected to those missing pieces. Not necessarily as the killer. But as someone whose role in the story is much larger than anyone realizes. Someone who may hold the key to the entire mystery. Whether he knows it or not. Because if Sarah and Gary truly believe they're protecting Todd, then the upcoming revelations could be catastrophic. Imagine the fallout. Maria discovering the truth. Kit uncovering the cover-up. The police learning evidence was concealed. Friendships destroyed. Relationships shattered. Trust obliterated. Lives changed forever. And that's exactly why this storyline has become so addictive. Because every possible answer creates new problems. Every revelation creates new victims. Every truth creates new lies. And just when viewers think they've solved the puzzle, another piece appears. A piece that changes everything. So let's step back and ask the question nobody can confidently answer. Did Todd kill Theo? Did Sarah and Gary simply think he did? Are they protecting him? Or are they unknowingly covering for somebody completely different? Because what if the real killer hasn't even entered the conversation yet? What if every suspect we've been focusing on is simply a distraction? What if the truth has been hiding in plain sight this entire time? And that's the terrifying possibility facing Weatherfield right now. As suspicions grow. As secrets unravel. And as the walls begin closing in around Gary and Sarah. One thing feels increasingly certain. The story they're telling isn't the full story. Not yet. There is still a missing piece. A missing truth. A missing moment from that fatal night. And when that final piece finally emerges, it could completely rewrite everything viewers thought they knew. Because if Gary and Sarah really are protecting someone, the next question becomes unavoidable. Who are they protecting? And perhaps even more importantly, what happens when that person is finally exposed? Because if one thing is becoming clear, the truth about Theo Silverton's death may be far more dangerous than anyone imagined. And when the final secret from that night finally comes to light, Weatherfield may never be the same again.